As a full-time van builder, I see a lot of people using these Bosch electric water heaters, but are they really the best choice? Today, I'm going to break down the pros and cons of these two most popular water heaters for mobile plumbing systems. So if you're doing an upgrade or a conversion on a van, truck, or RV, you're definitely in the right place. And make sure and stay till the end, because I'm going to share with you my #1 pro tip for conserving your battery power when using electric water heaters. So let's get into it. Hey guys, Jeff with Thrive Vans. Today I've got a couple of water heaters here, the Bosch electric water heater and the Isotemp. Now first of all, let's talk about what these intended purposes are for these two water heaters from the manufacturer. This Bosch one is really intended for places in a home where maybe the hot water takes a while to get to, like a bathroom maybe that's far away, or a garage that's far away from the water heater. And so you can install these underneath the sink, and it provides hot water to that faucet. So they're really designed for a residential or stationary application. The Isotemp is made by the same company that makes Isotherm refrigerators. They are a RV and marine product manufacturer. So the Isotemp water heater is really designed for marine applications, boats and RVs and things like that. Now that I think is really important because, you know, in a van, you're like in a moving earthquake. It's vibrating and moving all the time. And so I feel a lot better having a product that was intended for that kind of a use. You know, we say marine environment a lot in the van building industry, and we at Thrive Vans like to use marine grade products whenever we can. So why is that important? Well, marine grade typically is made to a very high standard because the marine environment is one of the harshest environments in the world. Between the weather, the salt water, the vibrations, and the undulations of the sea, it's a harsh environment. So we know that this water heater is made to withstand that type of environment. Now let's talk about the power consumption. Both of these are electric water heaters, AC. They plug into a regular household outlet. So in our experience, we found that this Bosch water heater pulls about 1,500 to 1,800 watts. And the Isotemp pulls about 700 to 900 watts. So what does that mean? Well, this one is a 2.5 gallon. In our experience, it takes about 12 to 15 minutes to heat the water in this one. In the Isotemp, it's a 4 gallon, and we found that it takes about 30 to 40 minutes to heat. You end up using about the same amount of battery power to heat the same amount of water. Because this is a 2.5, you might use a little bit less to heat it, but you're gonna have to do it more often. Whereas the 4 gallon, once you heat it, it's gonna last longer. You're heating more water, which takes a little bit longer, but you are not gonna have to reheat it as often. Another big benefit to the Isotemp that we found is that it's better insulated than the Bosch. So when we've done testing, and in our shop where it's about 65 degrees, we can heat the water, and let's say in the afternoon or evening, the next morning, the water is still pretty hot, and even 24 hours later, it's still warm. Where with the Bosch, you heat it up, if it sits overnight, the water's got to be heated again. And so you might use a little bit more power to heat the water up with the Isotemp in the first place, but you're not going to have to do it as often. So if you're stationary for 2 or 3 days, the Isotemp is going to end up using less energy, less battery power than the Bosch. Now, another benefit of the Isotemp is that you can plumb this into the radiator coolant heating system of your vehicle. So these two ports right here are where you can actually run your radiator hose, splice into those, run a hose back and into this, and then out of here and back to the radiator. And you can, when you're driving, use that heated radiator fluid to heat the water, which means that you rarely will have to run the electricity. Now, this is a great option if you have a shower and you're going to be using a lot of hot water. But if you're just doing maybe an outdoor shower sporadically and have a sink and you're just using a little bit of hot water here and there, then I don't think it's really worth the time and effort and the expense to splice into the heating and coolant system of the vehicle. But if you have a shower, then that might be something you want to consider. Now, with that, another consideration is the form factor. So the Bosch only comes in this one design. It's kind of a square unit. The 4 gallon is just a little bit larger, where the Isotemp comes in several different varieties. This is just the normal, this is the 15 liter or about 4 gallons. It also comes in a slim version, which is a little bit skinnier, smaller diameter, and a little bit longer. And then it comes in a square version. And so it's nice, depending on your application, that you can find the right size to fit where you need to put it. Now, one of my number one reasons where I prefer the Isotemp over the Bosch is the ability to drain. As you can see, the Bosch has to sit in this orientation upright. There are no ports on the bottom to drain it. There's only the 2 ports in the top for the cold water to go in and the hot water to come out. And then this is for a pressure release. So we typically will plumb a pipe into this and out the bottom of the van. So if there's pressure in here that builds, it can let off the pressure outside of the van. So how would you drain this? There's a couple of ways you can do it. One is to disconnect everything, take it outside and dump it. The other is to put a pump into it and pump the water out. Now, we have tried blowing the water out, but what happens is, because the air is going in and then back out this one, really what we find is it just bubbles and gurgles, and you end up not being able to get the water out of the tank. And so really there is not a good way to drain this. And that's another reason it just wasn't made for a mobile application. Makes it really difficult. The reason that we have this unit right here is we were unable to get, one of the first vans that we did, we were unable to get all the water out, and it froze and it cracked the inside of this. It cracked the heating element and it doesn't work anymore. So that's, to me, a big drawback of this Bosch unit. Now the Isotemp, like I said, has for your vehicle coolant system, you can pipe it into here. And then you've got the cold input down here and then the hot water out to here. And it actually has a mixer here that you can adjust the temperature going out. And this will heat the water up to about 170 or 180 degrees. So it'll make it really hot. We typically will turn it down so it's not that hot. Down here on the bottom, you can see is another port, and this is where you can drain the tank. What we'll typically do is just connect a flexible hose to this that's about 6 or 7 feet long, and we'll coil it up inside the van, but then you can take that outside, you can open this valve, and you can drain the tank. So that makes it really nice that way, to be able to drain this one where you can't drain the Bosch. Now, when you do drain it, you need to open up the valves on the kitchen or wherever you have all your faucets, kitchen, shower, open those up on the hot side so that it can let air in as the water drains. Otherwise, it'll create a vacuum and it won't drain very well. But really, that's a really nice feature. One of my favorite features of this one is that you can drain it. Now, another thing that I really like about the Isotemp is it has these feet to mount it. So you can just bolt this into wherever you're putting it and mount it. You can mount it on sideways like this. You can mount it on a flat surface this way. They do recommend that you orient it either that way or that way, but not upward or downward. But you can mount it to a wall or to a floor or a platform. So it's nice that way. With the Bosch, it really doesn't have a good way to mount it. It does come with kind of a little bracket that it'll hang on here. So you can screw that bracket into the wall and then just hang this on it. But really that's not enough in a moving vehicle to secure it. And so when we've used this one, we have used some kind of straps, metal straps or nylon straps to secure this down, but it doesn't have really as clean of a way to install it as the Isotemp does. Now, what about price? So that's probably the reason the Bosch is so popular, is it is pretty expensive. You can pick these up for under $200, usually anywhere from $175 to $200 for the 2.5 gallon version. Now the Isotemp is more expensive, but you get what you pay for. And so this one runs around $650 to $700. You typically would have to buy it from a marine supplier. There's a few that we've used. Panther RV is probably our favorite place to get them. Van Life Outfitter sells them. There's a few other places. I'll put some links in the description if you're interested in picking this up. Now, I promise you a pro tip for saving battery power when using electric water heaters, because the fact of the matter is these guys use a lot of power. In fact, running this Bosch water heater for 15 minutes or so, or running the Isotemp for 30 to 40 minutes is going to use about 10 to 20% of your battery power. And nobody wants to see their battery gauges dropping like a rock, right? So here's my favorite tip for using these water heaters, and that is to run the water heater, heat the water while you're driving. If you have alternator charging capability on your vehicle, then you're probably getting somewhere between 30, 60, or 100 amps out of your vehicle's alternator. And that's going to be enough to at least offset the amount of power that these guys are drawing. It may not be enough to completely keep up with it, but it's gonna do most of the heavy lifting to heat the water. Now, what we do typically is just anytime during the day, just flip on the water heater, run it, and both of these are on thermostats, so they're just gonna run until the water's heated up, and then they're just gonna maintain that temperature. And so if you're driving and you run the water heater midday, run it for, it doesn't matter, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, because the thermostat's just going to keep it topped off. And then you can shut the water heater off. And in this one especially, the water's going to stay hot for 12 to 24 hours. And in this one, 3, 4, 5 hours. And so you're going to have hot water that evening. And then even the next morning, especially with the Isotemp, that water's still going to be warm. Or you can flip your water heater on again in the morning, and it's already going to be warm, so it's not going to take as long to heat it, not going to use as much energy. So that is my favorite tip. Really good way to conserve power in your batteries. If you're doing a plumbing system in a van, truck, or RV, it can be pretty overwhelming, both on how to do it as well as what components to use. We've done a video where we go do an overview of everything, how we do it, what we use, and what we've learned in our 15 plus vans that we built. And so if you're interested in checking that video out, you can tap the screen or click on the link. We've got a ton of other videos on our channel about van conversion, product reviews, tool reviews, and van life in general. So consider subscribing, and make sure to hit the like button if you got value out of this video. And I'll see you in the next video. Jeff with Thrive Vans. Thrive on. See ya.